Lunch with Pippa Hudson.
And now, Consumer Talk, featuring Wendy Knowler.
It is time for Consumer Talk, and Wendy Knowler is back with us this week here in studio. And we're going to be talking about a cluster of complaints about an air conditioning business, which raises big questions around the risk of paying either in full or a substantial deposit upfront before you have received the promised goods or services. If you have had experience with this issue, if you'd like to ask a question or engage, you are welcome to call us on 021 446 0567, or you can send a voice note or WhatsApp text to 072 567 1567. Great to have you back with us. We missed you last week, Wendy.
Thank you, Pippa. Ditto.
This is a tough one because a lot of service providers do ask for substantial or sometimes even full payment upfront. And I know often as consumers, we don't feel empowered to query that. But the case studies we're looking at today, Wendy, are a good example of how that situation can go wrong.
Absolutely. So with any home or office installation or construction, there is risk to both parties, right? So for the contractor, there's the risk that the client won't pay, and shamefully, many don't. Yeah, they find some little niggle and then just dodge the payment. And for the customer, the risk is, of course, that the supplier will take your money and give you nothing in return. Nothing that is but a long, exhausting and mostly fruitless run around to get your money back. And that's why contractors require deposits on acceptance of their quote, and quite understandably as well. To my mind, though, it shouldn't be more than a 50% deposit so that each party has equal skin in the game, equal risk. And when I started in consumer journalism 27 years ago, it was the norm. The norm, equal skin in the game, and that deposit that contractors are asking is going up and up and up. And I'm sure those who are listening, driving along, thinking, "Well, that's because so many customers don't pay." Whatever, that is the reality. But the upshot is that the consumer has far more to lose if things go wrong than the contractor does. They've got. 70% is common. 80%, I would say, for me, that would be
a step too far.
Except in extreme cases, depending on what the goods being supplied are, the risk the contractor carries, that kind of thing. But 80%, you must know you are at quite great risk if something goes wrong.
Okay. Which then leads us to today's case study, or rather case studies plural, Wendy.
Yes. So Cape-based Cool Tech Solutions asked for payment of 80% of the quoted job as a deposit from its customers. But in the case of at least 6 people, and those are just the 6 that we know of, the company, which is run by Jacques and Mandre Small, took their money, their 80% deposits, and then failed to install the air conditioning units, some in homes, 2 in business premises, all in the Cape area. The cases date between August last year and May of this year. The areas that the company operated in ranged from Somerset West to Wellington, Parow, Malmesbury, Atlantis and Belleville.
Now, did these clients ask for their money to be refunded after time had passed, Wendy?
Yes, so they paid their deposit, waited for installation. The dates came, there was various excuses, bad weather, Bucky broke down, fell off a ladder. And then, of course, the client reaches the point when they say, okay, well, I want my money back. Then they got letters saying, or emails saying, or SMSs, some form of communication saying, we will pay you back within, I think it was 5 to 10 or 10 to 15 working days. I'll confirm that in a bit. And then just as that period was coming to a close, they'd get, in the case of 3, they got letters saying, we've gone into liquidation. So sorry, you won't
join the line of creditors.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Wendy, obviously that does happen. It can happen. Businesses go into liquidation. Times are very tough out there, we know. But what is problematic here is the timeline around that going into liquidation letter versus new orders being taken.
Okay, absolutely. So in the case of the 6, which we'll call them, 3 of them got those "we are liquidating" notifications in March of this year. But in April, and until fairly recently, Mandre Small was still placing adverts for aircon specials on Facebook Marketplace. In April, some weeks after those "we are liquidating" emails were sent to the 3 of the 6 who had been asking for a refund of their deposits, Cool Tech Solutions quoted 2 more people for jobs, 2 more that we know of, and accepted payment of 80% deposits from them, and then didn't supply the goods to them or the service. So that is problematic, and I think it's relevant to say that the losses of the 6 combined cases, so the total of their 80% deposit that they paid is around 146,000 rand.
So it's substantial sums of money involved. Okay.
Substantial money.
Now, Wendy, those 6 haven't just come to us at Consumer Talk. They've also taken steps to pursue criminal action, haven't they?
Yeah. So they've opened cases of fraud at various police stations. Our information is that those cases are now being coordinated by SAPS, because if you go, that's the only way that you're really going to be able to build a case. If you've got one case, one police station and another one, and they
operate in silos.
The prosecutor, the chances of prosecution are not great. But once you've got a pattern and several complainants, all with the same modus operandi, then there is interest.
And the appetite to prosecute probably goes up. Okay,
Exactly.
So 6 of these complainants have opened cases of fraud, and we'll take a look at the individual ins and outs of those cases one by one. But just to say, so police action has been taken, and in one case, consumer small claims court action as well, which we will get to in a moment. But the bottom line is that these are the 6 that we're aware of who paid their 80% deposits. And Wendy, also important to say, and I think in fairness to the company, important to say that some of them said to us, I did so because I had previously dealt with them and I'd had good experiences with their service delivery when they were trading under a previous name as Efficient Air Conditioning and Ventilation. We knew it was the same people, so we thought we'd get the same kind of service.
Actually, and that's what makes it really sad for me and quite odd, because, we've all done that, had good experience from a company and then used them again with great faith that, you're going to get the same good service. So most of the 6, certainly, many of them, had this really good experience, good value for money, good service, efficient service from Efficient Air Conditioning and Ventilation, which is owned by the same couple, or one of their names. And then had a completely opposite experience.
Second time round.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's bring in one of the complainants. Laura Ford is with us on the line, and it was her husband David who dealt with Jacques about an aircon installation at their home at the end of last year. Laura, thank you so much for being willing to chat to us today, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Nice to be with you.
Thank you. Won't you just tell us briefly what happened, starting with your earlier dealings with this endeavour?
Yes, I think the whole sort of crux of this, or the continuing line of problems is the modus operandi. So our initial contact with them was in March 2020 with an installation. We subsequently used them over the following years 7 times. And never had issues. Fantastic service, attention to detail, no complaints. So it was a complete no-brainer when we wanted to install 2 new units in December to make contact with them. They gave advice on what units, pricing, and we paid the quote, the 80% deposit, without a second thought. We truly never ever thought to just take 5 minutes and do a bit of social media research, which was a valuable lesson. It doesn't take long to just go and do a little bit of Googling, a little bit of Google reviews, Facebook comments, to get a quick picture. But we didn't. And then, yes, as Wendy says, we started getting the excuses, and kind of by about late March realized that things were going south. And then that's how I found the other aggrieved parties, their complaints on Facebook, and this is how we kind of got our little group together, comparing notes, and we basically all went through the same process of receiving the letter of liquidation, and initially refund within 10 to 15 business days.
Right. Yeah.
That didn't materialize. Then it was, we're in liquidation. But liquidation, when you go into liquidation, you have to cease trading. And they, as Wendy said, they have continued trading up until, last month was the last issue we know of. So, that's the story.
Okay.
Laura, as a matter of interest, when you say you received a list of excuses why the work wasn't being done, what were some of those excuses? What were you told was the reason?
They were, okay, so installation was supposed to be 23 December. We then were told that he had an accident with a grinder and injured his hand and needed an operation. So that kind of made us back off until end of January because we realized he would need to get better. Then they told us they had Bucky problems. Then delay. Then they were actually on their way to us when the Bucky broke down. You just can't actually make this stuff up. And then the son broke his arm. And then we kind of realized, okay, no, we want a refund. It's not going anywhere.
How much had you paid, Laura, as an 80% deposit?
We paid 35,000.
Okay, substantial amount. And
yeah.
You naturally suspect you've spoken to 6, but you suspect that there could be others. If somebody,
There must be.
yeah, if somebody listening also paid a deposit to this operation and have nothing to show for it, what would you advise them to do?
Please get hold of us. I will give you an email address that we have for our group. The more people we can find, the more powerful our case is with SAPS. We realized, I think a big thing here is we realized we're not going to see that money again. That money's gone, but we need to stop this happening to other people. Because if they don't get stopped, they will just continue to do it.
Okay.
And, we're at a point where they can't keep doing this. That's wrong. It's fraud. 150,000 Rand, and there is absolutely nothing to show for that.
Did you ever attempt to engage with one of the couple to say, you were so great, we loved the service, what's happened?
Absolutely.
What
Well, either they ignore your emails or your WhatsApps. But, my husband really genuinely tried to reach out and tell them that they were going down the wrong road. And, come on.
Did you
turn this around?
Did you ever speak to them, or was all your correspondence written about email or SMS or WhatsApp?
There was no actual conversation.
Yeah, the others have said that as well.
Was when Jock was recommending what units to put in. But otherwise, that is the one gripe we have had with them in that entire period since we started using them was they don't answer their phone, they don't reply to email. But we kind of overlooked that because their service was so good.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
Okay, so Laura, look, I wanted to say again, I think it's fantastic the solidarity you've all shown in grouping together to try and make sure that other people don't fall victim to this modus operandi. Won't you just remind us again, if somebody is listening to this going, hey, #MeToo, it happened to us, what's the best way to connect with you?
The email is airconfraud@gmail.com.
airconfraud@gmail.com. And you can then be connected with the other people who have brought cases to SAPS and make sure that you are contained under the same same group, as it were, in how it's treated.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, I'm really sorry that this happened to you, but thank you for being willing to come on air and share the details with us so that others can avoid this happening to them. I think it is very valuable and we do appreciate it.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Laura
Wendy.
Ford speaking to us there. So one of the 6 cases that we looked at. Wendy, shall we... I tell you what, we let's briefly look at one or two of the others. I'm keeping an eye on the clock and knowing that news is looming, but there are 5 others, all with very similar stories.
Yeah.
So I think it does reinforce what we've just heard from Laura. Do you want to tell us about what happened to Albert?
I've spoken to all of them.
Yeah.
In January, Albert de Vos of Parow paid Cooltech a deposit of almost 25,000 Rand to install an aircon unit in his home. Installation was supposed to happen on the 8th of Feb. Didn't happen. Excuses included a broken down Bucky, he or his wife being ill, that's Jacques Small, and then a long string of next weekend. He asked for a full refund at the end of Feb, got a letter saying he'd get it in 10 to 15 working days, same MO. 2 days before that was up, he received notice of intention to liquidate. Albert opened a case of fraud in March, and he was one of several, this is interesting, one of several of the complainants of the 6 who received an email from Jacques yesterday ordering him to immediately cease and desist from making false, defamatory and harassing statements against him and his family.
Yesterday. Okay, obviously subsequent to your engagement. And we have had engagement in which we will share, obviously, as part of this.
Laura and David, her husband, got the same
letter. So 3 of them all yesterday?
Yep.
Okay, so 3 of the 6 have received that letter from
I think it's 3. It's either 2
okay.
or 3. I'll confirm in a second.
Okay, so we'll pause it there for a second because we must just take an ad break and go to news, but we will be back after this with a couple of other case studies and obviously with the response from the company, as is the right and fair that Wendy did engage with them, and we'll tell you how that went. Okay, as one of our listeners says, the case studies are always fascinating, but what real world recourse do we have? I'm busy shopping for a kitchen and the default I'm being asked for is 60 to 70%.
Yeah, that's normal.
All with reputable companies. What am I supposed to say?
I would say choose one that's a member of the Kitchen Specialists Association, the KSA, because they will mediate any disputes.
Oh, that's helpful advice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not to say that there's, that if they're not a member, they're not perfectly reputable. I don't want to create that impression, but I do know from dealing with these cases for so long that the KSA is very hands-on if you have a dispute, and it's so nice to not be fighting this on your own.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's great advice. We've also got some advice from Angelo, which we'll share with you on how to make giving advice on what to do when contractors do ask for large deposits. That's helpful. Mm-hmm. We'll share that with you, and we'll also circle back to the other case studies in this current batch, plus the owner of the business's response. Just before the break, we had a listener asking, what should we do then when a contractor asks us for a large deposit? And Wendy gave case-specific advice to that person on a kitchen contract, but I believe we've also received a voice note from our DIY contracting guy, Angelo, who'd like to share some advice around contractors and deposits. Thanks for sending this, Angelo. Let's take a listen.
Hi, Pippa. Angelo here. With regards to paying deposits, when we tackle projects, if a contractor is looking for a deposit, we require the invoice from the supplier, a tax invoice, as well as a transfer of ownership documentation stating that the material, once paid for, belongs to the client. There are other steps involved, but that's the way. That's the only way you can secure materials.
I love that.
That's
I'm going to be using that. Thank you, Angelo, going forward on all my platforms.
Thank you for that. So just to recap, and we shared some of the case studies beforehand. I just want to go back to where we started this conversation. The company in question is currently operating as Cool Tech Solutions, and these customers had paid up to 80% in deposits for various air conditioning jobs, both at home residences and in an industrial setting, mainly in the Somerset West, Wellington, Malmesbury, Atlanta sort of area, as well as some cases in Belleville. And Wendy has engaged with the owners, Jacques and Mandre Small, and we'll get to that in just a moment. We heard from Laura. We heard about Albert's experience. Wendy, let's just quickly take a look at the others as well, because it does really help to build the picture of what's been happening. What happened to Dominic?
Dominic Haag of Somerset West paid Cool Tech a deposit of 42,000 Rand in January for an aircon job. Excuses for non-delivery. The same broken down bakkie. Then came the promise to refund letter. Then the liquidation email. Then yesterday the cease and desist. That was another one who got
one. So that was Dominic. And then we had Belinda Dawson in Malmesbury.
Yeah.
Now, she was another one of those who said that she'd previously had a really positive experience with the Smells when they were trading as Efficient Air.
Yes. The apparently very aptly named Efficient Air. She was, so on the basis of that, she was happy to pay Cool Tech 13,500 Rand on the 9th of August last year. This is the oldest case of the 6 for an aircon installation. Excuses included that he, for not doing the installation, was that Jacques had fallen off scaffolding and hurt his back. After she opened a case of fraud, this is interesting, Cool Tech made a deposit of 200 Rand into her bank account without communicating with her about that, and as a result the case was closed. It's since been reopened.
No, so she paid 13,500 Rand. She was refunded 200 Rand,
just said,
and the police
Cool
closed the case on that ground.
Because the thing was that there's no pattern here, and she was the first, remember. There's no pattern, and he's obviously going to pay you back. This is just the first. That was also the last. So she's currently owed around 13,300, not 500.
Okay. And then we have Craig Bauer.
Sorry, just to say, she took the matter to the small claims court. The couple failed to appear, so she has a default judgment, and she's had no further refunds.
Okay, so there is actually a small claims court judgment saying she is owed a refund.
Because they didn't appear.
Okay. Then Craig Bauer, it was an industrial one in his case.
Yes, he got Cool Tech in to quote for an industrial extraction system at his billiard and dart club in Belleville. He, again, as well, I think they all had previously had a good service experience with the Smells. And so he paid his 13,000 Rand deposit on the 12th of May, and the case then followed the same pattern as the others. Like the others, after the quotation stage, which was handled by Jacques, all communications were with his wife, Mandre. He told me they still accepted my deposit payment after sending liquidation letters to the others who they owed deposit refunds to.
Okay. And then the final case that we are aware of is of Skalk Pretorius, who owns 2 factories in Atlantis.
Yeah, 2 aluminium plants. He gave Cooltech the go-ahead to install 2 aircon units in one of them and paid a deposit of 18,000 Rand in April on the basis, again, of a good experience he'd had with Efficient Air, also operated by the Smells. He got no installation. The blame was put on heavy rain and unavailability of technicians. When he got the liquidation notification in July, he asked for the liquidation attorney's details, but was not given that information. He also told me he tried to find out, well, where are these units? Let me come and collect them and I'll get somebody else to install them. And he didn't get anywhere with that. So again, if you've taken Angelo's advice, there's a good one for everybody. Let me see I've paid you so much up front. I want to see your invoice from the supplier and the transfer of ownership so that I know you've actually bought the stuff. And that is why deposits are paid up front, right? Because contractors need to make upfront payments for goods from their suppliers.
They have an outlay.
That's the justification for it, and understandable. But then we have a right to say, well, I want to see that you've bought this stuff with my money.
And I'm not just taking it and running away. Yeah. Okay. So Wendy, of course, so those are the 6 cases that we're aware of. And as always, the right thing, you have to engage with the service provider who has been named in this case. And you did that. Tell us what happened.
I did. So Laura gave me a number of cell phone numbers and she said, this is the one that you're probably most likely to get him on. And so I phoned the number and I got a voice recording. And I decided, okay, I'm going to not waste time on this. I'm going to send an email. Later, I discovered that I'd been sent a WhatsApp from West Coast Aircons. West Coast Air Conditioning and Refrigeration of Veldrif was registered in January of this year under the name of Mandre Smal. My WhatsApp message read, Goeiemorgen, ek het lovely Afrikaans, oproep gemist. Hoe kan ek help? Groete, West Coast Aircons. So that's a company that is currently operating, and it sounds to me like they're open for business. Otherwise, why would you follow up like that?
On a missed call.
Unless it was an automated thing. I don't know, but that was my experience.
Okay, but that's
so
I
wrote back and said,
name.
Are you in business, still in business? And I didn't get a response.
But you did then, what you did by email was take all of these case studies and send them
everything
by email.
Everything we've shared here.
And what became of that, Wendy?
I also wanted an answer, obviously, on why were you sending out liquidation with emails saying justifying why you're not refunding deposits for people you didn't supply to, and then continuing to take new business and 80% deposits from other people. So he was very displeased at the inquiry. He vehemently resisted responding, also invited one to the show. No, he ordered us to cease and desist any broadcasting of the issue and any identification of him, his spouse, or his businesses. We have done so in the public interest. He was also said it's harassment and defamation. It's not defamation, and this applies to people posting on social media as well. It's not defamation as long as it's true and in the public interest, and we feel, and so do our attorneys, that we've ticked both those
It's justified
boxes.
and
we've given him the right.
Yeah.
That's our responsibility as professional journalists, is to give him the right of reply, which I've done many times, and we've had several exchanges. In fairness to him, we're just reflecting a little of what he told us, which is it's important to emphasize that there was never any intention to defraud anyone. We were not found guilty of any wrongdoing. The closure arose solely due to significant hardships and the difficult economic conditions which severely impacted the viability of the business. He talks of closure, but nobody's seen any evidence of liquidation proceedings. No one's got any. If you are a creditor, and you certainly are a creditor, if you've paid someone money and they haven't delivered the goods, you would need to get an instruction to contact the liquidators, add your name to the list of creditors, etc. And none of that has
been
happened.
supplied. Yeah. Even when it has been directly asked for, as it was in the case of Skalk, who knew that had to happen.
Yes.
And said, okay, well, if you're liquidating, send me the liquidation attorney's details. and that was not forthcoming.
No.
Okay, so we have a default small claims court judgment. We have active fraud cases hopefully being investigated by the authorities. And then we have the claim of liquidation, but no proof being provided.
No substantiation.
To substantiate that claim. Okay, so that is what we have. And I want to remind you what Laura said, that if you are listening to this going, I can't believe it, this happened to me too, please do consider reaching out to those other complainants and joining the case that is being made here. You can send an email to airconfraud@gmail.com if you'd like to contact Laura. They will then advise you on how to go about getting a case number from the police, and you will be added to the WhatsApp group which they have formed with the other complainants, by which they are communicating and helping each other to bring this case. So if you're driving and couldn't jot that down, you're welcome to mail me after the show, pippa@capetalk.co.za, and I can connect you with Laura and with that address. I believe we've got a voice note responding to this conversation. We can take a listen to that and then a couple of other WhatsApps.
Hi, Pippa. I'm listening to the radio and I'm listening to this, and people are obviously being caught by these people. Why doesn't someone just pretend they want to quote, get the guys out and then get them arrested? Because this is terrible. I mean, we run a company and we take an 80% deposit, but we let the clients pay the service providers direct for equipment should it be necessary. And this kind of thing gives people such a bad name. It's terrible. They should be arrested. It's disgusting.
Well, the case has been laid. It's up to the police how they choose to proceed.
And
but yeah,
thank you very much for that voice note, because that's another good piece of advice. Is there's nothing wrong with you saying, look, I understand you need to make an outlay up front. I'm not comfortable with paying you a whole 80%. I haven't, whatever. Let me pay your supplier, and then you collect the goods from them. I mean, there are ways around sort of limiting your risk.
Limitation of risk is really what we have.
And if they refuse, then you've got to ask yourself why.
Yeah, good point, yeah. I'm smiling. Vic is going, a cease and desist letter. This guy's been watching too many legal TV series. He sounds like a crook, is the comment. Well, look, okay, as I said, and we really have done from our side what we could to engage with him. We have offered him the opportunity to join the show today and state his case, which he declined to do. We did run it past our legal team to say, are we doing the right thing in the way that we are proceeding? And they were confident that there certainly was a case to be made for the argument that this is in the public interest. To prevent other people potentially falling victim. And we will keep you posted. I mean, one hopes, Wendy, with sufficient traction and the number of complainants who's come forward, that there will be action from police and that we'll one day be able to give our listeners an update on what became of this.
As you said earlier, the more cases, the bigger the appetite that the authorities have to proceed.
Hello, Pippa. I came in late on the discussion on air conditioning. There is a society it's called Saracca, Saracca, I think. And I would always use a contractor that belongs to Saracca. They're a very strong organization, and they look after all contractors. I would try that.
Thank you for that. And Saracca stands for South African Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Contractors Association.
I did not know about its existence.
So thank you for that voice note, Tessie. Much appreciated. And thank you to my producer for looking up their website already for us. It's saracca.co.za. South African Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Contractors Association, saracca.co.za. Yeah, Valdi's saying, before paying a deposit, find out, this is great advice actually, find out from the contractor where he will be purchasing his products from. Do they have an account with that supplier? Phone the supplier and ask for a reference on how he conducts his account and whether he has bought any products within the last 3 months. This would give you an indication if he has a good or bad relationship with suppliers. I can imagine that some people are going to try and hide behind Poppy there, Wendy, and say, I'm not releasing that kind of information.
Could be.
But it's worth a try. I think it's a fair point that you reach out and vet their business as you would vet other aspects.
What's particularly sad about the 6 that we've spoken about is that they, and I think even I might have done the same thing. You have already a previous relationship, you have a high level of trust, and you just
assume it'll be the same.
Yeah, same people. It's not like the company was taken over by somebody else, or it was a new name, but the same people running it. So
yeah,
very unfortunate.
Okay, what else have we got here? Gareth saying, why don't lawyers operate trust type accounts that client pays in and the funds are only released when the work is done by the construction people? Well, you see, they need the money to purchase the materials up front, Gareth. So a kind of an escrow situation, as you would use with a property transaction, isn't always going to work. But obviously, that's the ideal world.
Yes.
That it's held up in the ether and only released when all parties are satisfied, as it were. Okay, one or two completely different topics. And we've got a few minutes left, so let's just squeeze in an open line. Well, one of them is actually a follow-up. Ellis has written in to say, please ask Wendy how she's progressing with the Infinity Zevenwacht Spa, the cancelling of service. I have heard nothing from the new owner, and Infinity are giving me the runaround.
I've had no follow-up from them, and I must confess I haven't proactively done a follow-up.
Sought follow-up, yeah.
Exactly, so I will remedy that. I take it, though, and it's good news, they're very happy to tell you. So I take it that there's been no positive outcome. But it was sounding pretty helpful at the end of the last show. So I think we do have it.
Yes, just to give the context here for those who don't know the background, this was a couple of weeks ago. The previous spa, a person who operated the spa at Zevenwacht Estate, and it's not Zevenwacht themselves.
No,
it was a
separate
business. I want to be very clear on that. The previous operator went out of business or sold the business and left people with bookings in the lurch.
With vouchers that they were unable to use. Yeah.
And the people who were taking over that operation at the time, Zevenwacht reached out to us proactively and said, we want to help. And they came back saying that the new operator had indicated they would try to help accommodate these people.
And we've heard nothing since. So thank you for that nudge. I will make a note to find out and come back with that information next week.
There's also a thank you from Priscilla, who just wants to say, thank you for your advice. I was being tormented by lawyers over a prescribed debt case. And she said, I told myself you religiously listen to Consumer Talk. Use that knowledge to defend yourself.
Wonderful.
I followed all the instructions you gave, sent that to the lawyers, and they backed down. That's from a very happy Priscilla.
That has made my week. Thank you, Priscilla.
Too. Priscilla, thank you. I've got a question, Wendy, and I'm going to ask you to remind us because it's a subject we tackled a long time ago, and I can't remember what the solution was.
I've got performance anxiety now.
Techie Town is the new net florist, is what I'm going to say. And I'm going back a couple of years now. You'll remember I was not the only customer who was struggling with net florist not unsubscribing from multiple newsletters.
That seems to have resolved itself.
And net florist, that issue's gone away. I'm having the exact same issue now with Techie Town. I'm getting like 6 email newsletters a week.
So you obviously were a customer once and had to supply your email address?
I bought a single item from them once about 4 years ago online. And I have unsubscribed every time I receive those emails. I have mailed them. I have used the contact form on their website.
Well, you've now
I have
outed
tweeted
them on a public platform, which is not defamation because it's true to the public interest. I would say, and I can handle it on your behalf, but the information regulator is very happy to hear these complaints and they tackle them because there's no point in us having all these privacy rights, and we are legally protected not only by the POPI Act, by the good old Consumer Protection Act, which is 14 years old, which basically says if you say stop, they must stop. And they are committing an illegal act by continuing to plague you with unwanted marketing. So the fact that you did business with them ages ago and you had to give them an email address, I don't suppose you had to.
Make me married to them for life.
No, you never gave them a consent for marketing forevermore. But even if you did, you can change your mind. And you've said to them, no, stop.
Yeah.
No, how many times do you reckon?
Well, I've tweeted once. I used a contact form on their website once. I sent an email once. I CC'd them in my email to the National Consumer Commission, which is how desperate I got last week. Right. And I have also literally unsubscribed. I counted it. I lost count after about 12. I went back in my email box and I have issued the unsubscribe instruction using the link at the bottom of those newsletters at least 12 times.
The information
and I've had no response
at
all.
Friend, and please copy me in on that because I'd like to see.
So the information regulator is where to go. Thank you very much. By the way, during my engagement with the National Consumer Commission, who were fantastic, by the way, they got back to me straight away and said, we're busy introducing a new online system where consumers can set up a profile and log a complaint online. It's just kind of in transition from one system to another right now.
Hallelujah.
So please bear with us. at like 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, I got a
fantastic.
return call, Wendy. I was so impressed.
Let me tell you, they always issue recalls. Not always, but I mean, I can't tell you how many Friday afternoons they issue the recall. I'm like, what is it? Like 4:04 on a Friday afternoon. Obviously, it's a very active period for them. Who knows?
And I'm so impressed that they're still in the office and working hard on a Friday afternoon at that time. So well done. I was so impressed with how responsive they were, even though it wasn't the solution I was looking for in this case.
But you got a response and a helpful one.
And if only I'd had that response from the initial complaint, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So to be continued, because I think there is a lesson here to share with our listeners, Wendy, on what to do if this is happening to you from this business or any other business that refuses to honour your legal instruction to unsubscribe. So that's a topic for us to investigate for a future show.
And the regulator has been known to issue press releases outing companies that have refused on a grand scale to stop sending unwanted.
And it worked in the case of Netfrost. If we go, I mean, that was several years ago. There were a huge number of complainants in that case, and it seems to have stopped happening. Yeah. I have not been aware of that kind of complaint for a very long time.
I haven't had one for a very long time either. It was a rash, so it's over.
It seems to be resolved.
Over,
yeah. Okay. Well, let's hope we can get this one resolved as well, and we'll let you know. Oh, there's Jill saying I'm having exactly the same problem with Turkey Town. Thank you for looking into it. Okay. Well, that's one definitely to add to the list to be investigated, and we'll feed back. I think the bigger picture here, Wendy, is if anybody behaves in this way, it's what do you do to make sure that they honour your legal instruction?
And also, if I was listening and I wanted to do business with Tiki Town, I would go into a store. I would certainly not shop online and give them my personal information because
you're
they're proving
for a marriage and it's quite hard to get divorced, apparently. Yeah.
Okay, well said.
Wendy Knowler, always great to have you with us. Thank you for all the work on behalf of our listeners. And we will chat again next week with a reminder that if you want to log an issue on Wendy's platform, there is a contact form which she does look at. I promise. It's on wendyknowler.co.za, and that's spelled Knowler.